Welcome to Wednesday Night Live. Barry's with us tonight, and it's going to be a love fest, so I hope you feel the love. There's a calm surrender to the rush of day, when the heat of a rolling world can be turned away. An enchanted moment, and it sees me through. It's enough for this restless warrior just to be with you. And can you feel the love tonight? It is where we are. It's enough for this wide-eyed wanderer that we've got this far. And can you feel the love tonight? How it's laid to rest, 'cause it's enough to make kings and vagabonds believe the very best. There's a time for everyone if we only learn that the twisting kaleidoscope moves us on in turn. And there's a rhyme and reason to the wild outdoors, when the heart of this star-crossed voyager beats in time with yours. Can you feel the love tonight? It is where we are. When the heart of this star-crossed voyager that we've got this far. And can you feel the love tonight? How it's laid to rest. It's enough to make kings and vagabonds believe the very best. Yes, it's enough to make kings and vagabonds believe the very best.
Yes, Tom. Yes, I can feel the love tonight. Thank you, brother. Thank you, Susan, Josh, Rob, Kent. Appreciate your talents and your gifts. Hello. How are you doing tonight? No, I mean, seriously, how are you? I mean, we are still in interesting times, although maybe that's just the new norm. I don't know. I know this last, year or however long it's been has really provided me with an opportunity to get in touch with my needs. Like, what do I need to make life wonderful? What do I need to make life alive? And it's been interesting. I've discovered a lot of the things that I thought I needed that were really crucial and I wouldn't be happy without, they've just kind of faded away. And they weren't that important. And a lot of the things that I took for granted, like being on campus with all of you wonderful people, man, I realized how important that is to me, to really feeling that sense of being alive. So what about you? Are you getting your needs met? With all the interesting stuff and all the changes, are you able to get what you need to make life wonderful for you? I hope so. And if not, then I hope you're able to use these teachings and do whatever you need to do to make life more wonderful. I know one of the key components in meeting one's needs and the needs of others is compassion and empathy. And tonight, my good friend, my mentor, my peer, my brother, Dr. Barry Ebert, is going to be talking about empathy. Now, I know empathy is a skill that can be learned, it can be practiced, it can be improved, it can be mastered. And so I cannot wait to hear what gems Dr. Barry is going to drop on us tonight. But before that, Barry and Tom and the band are going to entertain us with an awesome song. I look forward to it.
One, two, three. Children, here we are, find ourselves together for a little while, and nothing feels so fine as these golden moments when we all smile. When you lay your head down, I want your mind to be at ease, 'cause you can have that feeling anytime you please. 'Cause there's a place in your heart where you can go. If things get confusing or you're feeling low, go to that place in your heart and you'll know what's right and wrong, if you're weak or strong, which way you should go. Your mom and dad, you know they sure do love you. They'd like to teach you all the things you need as you grow. But there'll be times you'll have to make your own decisions. And it will help you if you always know that there's a place in your heart where you can go. If things get confusing or you're feeling low, or when you just don't know, go to that place in your heart and you'll know what's right and wrong, if you're weak or strong, which way you should go. There's a place in your heart where you can go. There's a place in your heart where you can go. There's a place in your heart where you can go. There's a place in your heart where you can go. Yeah. Woo. Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Barry, you wrote that song, didn't you, Barry?
I did write that song, and I always play it at the end of all my Love and Logic classes. And so I thought it was a perfect one for tonight because I'm going to be talking a little bit about that and about empathy. So it seemed like the right one. So it's back. And in preparation for the song that I'm going to be doing later, I'm going to plug my guitar in now because that's what to do, I think. So if you'll just bear with me. All right, so welcome. So glad that you're here tonight, and so glad that I get to talk about empathy. It's one of my favorite things, and I've been talking about empathy here at Mile High Church for a long time, especially since I became a parent and learned about parenting with love and logic. And there's things that kind of show up in your life at the perfect time. And if you're paying attention, they can make a huge difference. Around here, we call that synchronicity. And I've had a few of those since I've been around here. And one of them was certainly how I got introduced to love and logic. I was working in the youth ministry back in the late 80s. And one of the teachers there gave me a cassette tape. You'll remember cassettes. Your grandparents used to have them. And gave me a cassette tape, and they said, you ought to listen to this, and I think this guy would be a great speaker here at Mile High Church. So now normally I might, put that in my pocket and not get to it for a while, but because it was about parenting, because I was interested in parenting, I had a couple of young boys, and I just was feeling that nudge. This is the right thing to listen to. So I put on that cassette that night and listened to it, and it changed my life. I got to say, it did. The name of the cassette was Helicopters, Drill Sergeants, and Consultants. The speaker was Jim Fay, and it was about parenting styles, is what it was about. And it was funny, and I really enjoyed it. And it's funny because we're funny people, aren't we? We're funny. And so I listened to it, and I said, yeah, we got to get this guy. So we had Jim Fay speak here in January of 1991, booked him to speak, and he was a great speaker, still is. And in the following year, we had his Love and Logic buddy, Dr. Foster Klein, come and speak. And I took the facilitator training, and what we do is every January, one of them would come and speak, and I would teach Love and Logic in a workshop starting the following week. So I've been teaching it here for a long time. A lot of people have taken Love and Logic. A lot of people in the room here tonight have taken it and are familiar with it. So it really changed kind of my outlook. I think I would have been a pretty good dad anyways, but this just gave me a plan, and it gave me an idea. It gave me a focus and a way to look at it. And one of the first things we learned about in Love and Logic was empathy. And that's what I'm talking about tonight. We learned about empathy. And just about when kids make mistakes, we're often tempted to punish them, to teach them a lesson. We're angry, and we want them to get it and learn their lesson right away. And so Love and Logic taught me about empathy and consequences. That when our kids make mistakes, and secretly we hope that they will because that's how they learn, we treat those mistakes with empathy, and we still allow them to experience their consequences. That's what I learned. And it's a great way to think about it. And as any parent will tell you, it's a very difficult thing to do. It's a lot easier than it is to talk about than it is to do it. But it's worth the effort because what we want to do is let the consequences do the teaching and not have us get in the way of it. That's the thing. The consequences will do the teaching. Our kids are smart. They'll get it if we stay out of the way. And if we jump in with our anger, it's just going to make it worse and make it harder for them to learn. So, so that's what I've been teaching here for a long time. And I wanted to kind of bring it to us in a little bit different way tonight, because one of the things that's been great is teaching Love and Logic here at Mile High Church, because I think it is so so connected and so in line with our science of mind philosophy. I really do. I think both of them are about personal responsibility, really, about taking good care of ourselves, taking responsibility for the choices that we make. And I think that's a basic building block of science of mind, is about being aware of our choices and realizing that we're creating the life that we're living by the choices that we make. And that's what we're trying to teach to our kids, and that's what we're trying to live ourselves here as well. So those two philosophies have aligned for me in a perfect way. Another example of synchronicity for me, and has been so much of a part of my whole time here at Mile High Church has been about teaching this. And we also learn a lot about empathy, and about empathy in our relationship with God. And I know for me, growing up, I heard a lot in my little church about God being angry, about sin. God was always watching us to see if he could catch us sinning, and then we would be punished if we sinned. And it was scary. And I remember that growing up. And at a certain point, I thought that I would just kind of let God go and hope that he would kind of let me go on my way as well. And so that's kind of what my relationship was about there. And then I found this place and started learning about this teaching here. And you know, when our kids came along and I got involved in the parenting and teaching parenting, I could really see how those two philosophies aligned with each other. One of the first things I can remember that reading from Ernest Holmes when I first took a class here was, we are not punished for our sins, but by the immutable law of cause and effect. We are not punished for our sins, but by the immutable law of cause and effect. And I thought, you know, that makes sense. God isn't up there keeping score. God is available. God is alive inside of me and alive in all people. And the choices that we make cause consequences for us. And it's a law. It's the way that the world works. It's the way that life works. And I love that. It made sense to me. Ernest Holmes said that God is love and God is law. So to me, what that means is that God treats us like a good parent with empathy and allows us to experience our consequences. This is the basis that we stand on here of making choices. Our opportunity to be more conscious of what we're doing. You know, Holmes said there is a power for good in the universe greater than we are, and we can use it. But we have to choose to use it. We have to turn our attention to the place where we want to go, and to not be afraid of a God, but to be in a relationship where God is supporting us. Not trying to catch us doing something wrong, but maybe trying to catch us doing something right. And so it really helped me get about being more in relationship and with that creative power, and to see more of God in relationship with me as a God of love, and to see that empathy there. You know, I'm the Bible guy here, and I love talking about the Bible. And Jesus, in his parables, talked a lot about the relationship between God and us. And one of his stories that I really love, Ernest Holmes called this one of the greatest teaching stories in all of religious education, and I believe it. I believe it. It's the prodigal son. It's in the book of Luke, and in this story, Jesus tells the story of a man who has two sons. And one day the younger son comes to the father and says, I want my share of the inheritance now. And that's a big ask in those days. So as the story goes, the next day the father divided his inheritance in half and gave the younger son his share. And then a couple days later, the younger son takes off and goes to what's called in this story a far country and squanders all of his money. And at this point, I would like to interject one of my favorite baseball quotes from the great Tug McGraw, who said, 90% of the money I ever made in my life I spent on wine, women, and song. The rest I wasted. So this was kind of the life of the prodigal son. He was partying hard, having a good time, and he blew all his money. And he was broke, and then a famine came into the land, and he wound up feeding the pigs to try to make a living. And he realized that he had blown it. And here's the turning point in this story. It says in the story in the Bible, and when he came to himself, he said, how many of my hired servants do my father have who have bread enough and to spare, and I perish here with hunger? When he came to himself, that's what Ernest Holmes said. This is the great turning point, the great awakening that we all have when we come to ourselves and realize that we are abundantly supplied, that we have all that we need. And we return from the far country unto our Father's house, into that relationship with God, when we come to ourselves. So as the story goes, the younger son gets on the road and he wants to go back and see if he can just get on as a hired hand with his father. And he wants to apologize to his father and make up for how bad he's blown it, that he's blown all this money and how bad he's been and what a sinner he is. And he wants to do that. And you know how the story goes. Father sees him on the road and hugs him and runs out to find him and puts this robe around him. He's so glad. He doesn't want to hear anything about the bad things that he's done. I'm just so glad that you're alive. I'm so glad that you're home. You know, and to me, that's empathy, right? That's empathy. He's not punishing him. We hear a lot about forgiveness in this story, that God is forgiving, but also God is understanding. God knows that we're going to make mistakes, but is always there to love us and to welcome us home. I know who you are. Welcome home. Welcome home. So as the story goes on, the older brother is home as well, right? He's been there the whole time. He comes in, he asks one of the servants that's there, what's going on here? And he says, well, your brother's returned and your father wants to have a big party. We're going to have a big barbecue and celebrate that your brother is home. And the older son is angry. He's angry. His father comes out to get him and try to bring him in. He says to his father, I've been here all this time working for you. I get no party. What about me? Why don't you have that kind of care for me? This younger brother of mine has gone out and blown all his money and done all this bad stuff, and you just welcome him home. It's not fair. And this is a lot of the way that we are in the world, that we want to punish people to teach them a lesson. How are we going to know that they've learned their lesson unless they've been punished? But the father just stuck with where he was, and he said, all that I have is yours. All that I have is yours. And your brother's home. He's alive. And we're going to celebrate. What this is about, this empathy thing and treating people with respect, is that we learn our lessons best from the inside, not from the outside when people are pushing against us. But when we come to ourselves, this is when we learn our lessons. When we have the opportunity to experience our consequences, experience how they're showing up in our lives, and we make different decisions. So, our overall theme at this year at Mile High Church, for the whole year, we're going to be working on something called evolved communication. Evolved communication. Because we're going to be gathering together in person in the world before long. We're going to be seeing each other. We've been communicating with each other in different ways, in electronic ways, the way that we are doing now, but we want to get back together. And when we do, we want to have our communication be better than it's been before. We hunger to be with each other. We really do. We're living at the pace of machines. We're talking with machines, but we want to get back together. And I think if we can get beyond our political tribalism and our social tribalism, there are great days ahead for us as we learn how to communicate with each other in a more evolved way. And I know that we can do it. I got a couple of suggestions for you here. First is to lead with empathy. Lead with empathy. When you're meeting new people, when you're in new situations, expect the best and lead with your heart open. You know, because of the anonymity of the internet, a lot of our conversation has gotten pretty nasty. And we got to get past that. Another thing that I've found is something I call the commerce of conflict. There are so many shows now where people are just against things and talking loud and barking real loud. And all of those talking heads are much more focused on what they're against than what they're for. I think as we move out into the world now, let's be clear about what we're for, what we stand for, what we want to create. And that's the question that we want to ask to the people we encounter. What are you for? What are you for? And we're going to listen with empathy. And we can set healthy boundaries. One of the things I've always loved about Love and Logic is encouraging parents to set healthy boundaries around themselves as they learn and grow with their kids. And we can do that when we meet people too. Because we're empathetic, that doesn't mean that we don't take good care of ourselves and set healthy boundaries. We can talk to each other, even if we disagree about things. We can show each other respect. We can know when to walk away when a conversation isn't going well. These are things that parents are teaching their kids at home by the way they operate. Not by what they say, but by the way they operate. So we can set healthy boundaries. And the last thing I want to say about tonight and about where we are right now, and it came to pass. That's a phrase that you hear in the Bible, and it came to pass. This will pass. This time that we're in right now. I think the question is, when we look back on this time, what will we say that we've learned? What was the most important thing that we learned during this time? I hope that we learned how to talk to each other with empathy. That we learned and we grew closer together. You know, we have things in common. We're all going through a pandemic. We can find things that we want to create together. This time of separation and anxiety will pass. Moving past this political tribalism that we've fallen into is going to give us the opportunity at a grassroots level to create the kind of communities that we want to be a part of. Communities that are more fair, that are more just, that are more open-hearted, where we can serve and support each other. That's the way we're going to move forward out of this. We're going to come to ourselves. Let's pray together. Almighty God, creator of all things, in this sacred moment, we open to the love that we feel as part of your creation. The love that you have for us, for all of us. No matter our tribe, no matter our religion, no matter our social standing, we are loved. And so we commit right now to extend that love that we have been so freely given, that we extend that to the people that we meet, that we open our hearts, that we become more loving, more open-hearted, more empathetic. I give thanks for the gifts that we find in this time. The gifts of compassion, of understanding, there is something bigger going on for us right now. And I affirm that we're opening to it. We're embracing it. One of the lessons that we're learning is patience. But we're also learning that we are in this together. We're all on God's team. No matter how we worship, that's what this lighthouse has always been about. So right now I ask you to commit with me to surrender to that love of God, the amazing grace that we live in right now. We can stand our ground with our beliefs. Let's open our hands and our hearts to the people around us. Let's come to ourselves. Let my soul surrender to the spirit that's inside of me. I let my heart fall open to this love that is setting me free. In this sacred moment where I stop and taste the breath of peace, leave the troubles of this world behind me, and I rest in your amazing grace. Move in me, great spirit. Now I feel you in my heart. In your presence I remember that we never have been apart. I will stop my thinking, if only for a little while. Leave my stories at the door for later, step into the silent smile. When my cup is empty, I am filled to overflow with peace. I have the kingdom in me, on a journey that will never cease. Move in me, great spirit. Now I feel you in my heart. In your presence I remember that we never have been apart. In in your presence. I remember that we never have been apart. So it is. So I want to thank you all for being here tonight, and I want to thank you for your continued support of Mile High. We're still doing great, and it's because of you that we are. And I want to just thank you on behalf of all of us here. It's just such an honor to still be bringing you music and bringing you talks, and we are looking forward to being together soon. But thank you for all your support. And there are ways that you can support us online. This will be the only time when I'll actually ask you to open your cell phone, but you could text us money if you'd like, or send us a note. Carrier pigeons, good, whatever. But most of all, thank you for your support. And during the offering here, we're going to do a new song. This is a song where we are hoping to bring some snow to the Front Range. We know that we need it. Things are dry. And so, this is a new one we put together for you. It's called I Love When It Snows. I love when it snows, I love when it snows. I love when the snow comes down. Each flake a little bit different, puts a blanket of white on the ground. Put on my big woolly socks, get a cardboard box, head for the top of the hill. I feel my heart pound as I point myself down, let gravity give me a thrill. I love when it snows, I love when it snows. I love when the snow comes down. Each flake a little bit different, puts a blanket of white on the ground. I don't have a care as I'm catching some air. Got my mind at the moment at hand. Got the wind in my face, smiles all over the place. Just part of my plan. I love when it snows, I love when it snows. I love when the snow comes down. Each flake a little bit different, puts a blanket of white on the ground. I'm so glad that we can't change the weather. It's all up to God and the clouds, and the storms always bring us together. We're cheering our neighbors, we're cheering the plows. I love when it snows, I love when it snows. I love when the snow comes down. Each flake a little bit different, puts a blanket of white on the ground. Take it, Rob. Snow day, when all you can do is just play. You can set yourself free in a new way. You know all that I got to say. Come on, Tom. I love when it snows, I love when it snows. I love when the snow comes down. Each flake a little bit different, puts a blanket of white on the ground. I love when it snows, I love when it snows. I love when the snow comes down. Each flake a little bit different, puts a blanket of white on the ground. Puts a blanket of white on the ground. Puts a blanket of white on the ground.
Awesome. Although, snow, me and snow, I don't know. But we knew we needed it. Barry, I got to give you some love, brother. Kristen and I took, I don't know how many of your Love and Logic courses. And, dude, I will say this. They didn't make parenting easy, but they made it better. So thank you, brother. Thank you. Love the work you're doing in the world. Hey, let's do some prayer. This is a time we call our community prayer. I'm going to do a treatment, and I invite you to do whatever you need to do to really embody the prayer for yourself, to take it in, or bring into your awareness those that you feel might benefit from this prayer. I recognize that God is all there is. One source out of which all arises. I recognize the beloved. That which is transcendent, beyond language, beyond conception, infinite potential, and yet simultaneously immanent and intimate, near and dear than my very breath, my heartbeat. And I know that I am unified with this one. That there is no possibility of separation. Though I may not understand it at times, I certainly may not be able to articulate it. The beloved and I are one. And as I accept this truth for myself, I absolutely accept, affirm, and proclaim that this is the truth for all who hear this prayer, for all of creation. Right where we are, right as we are, God is. And so I realize the truth of love. That love is simply another name for God. That even in those times where love may seem distant or even non-existent, I simply set that aside. I let that go. I turn from that false belief, that momentary experience, and I proclaim love. I claim love. And I invite all who hear this prayer in this moment to do exactly that. Claim love as our birthright, as our essence, as ever available, as all that we are. Love is, we are. And I simply affirm health, wellness, and wholeness. I know that there is a perfect pattern of right functioning, perfect alignment, perfect circulation that shows up in always in my being and in the being of all, in the beingness of all who hear this prayer. And so I invite each of us to come into that conception, that acceptance of wellness, health, and again, claim that as a birthright. And I do affirm prosperity and abundance. We live in a universe conceived and brought forth from an infinite supply. And so whatever boundaries or conditions or limitations we may feel from time to time, I do affirm that those are simply phenomena, temporary conditions They hold no ultimate truth. Let all who hear these words, let those limitations, those doubts, those fears simply fall away and step into the birthright of abundance. And I speak this word for peace, another name for God, another name for the One, another name for the Beloved. I claim peace in all its many expressions for myself and all who hear this prayer. I invite all to bring into your awareness really all of creation. For we all benefit from peace. And so I give thanks to know that this word spoken is already fulfilled within the mind of God. And I know that because if it wasn't, I couldn't speak it. If not complete in God's mind, how could it be expressed in mine? So I know that it is done, and I affirm that this word simply now works its way into expression, into demonstration in exactly the right way for each of us, exactly the right time. And so I do release this word into the law. I let it go like a seed planted into fertile ground. I have done my part. I turn it over now to the action of the creative process. That process which nothing stands in the way of ever. Having spoken this word, I accept that it is done. And so it is. Amen. So it was interesting to see which way I end up facing. I was roughly towards the center. That's good. All right, so we got some things that I want to remind you of before we go. Again, as Barry said, thank you so much for being here. Speaking of prayer, we have some awesome opportunities for you to engage with prayer. If you go to our website, milehighchurch.org/prayer-care, you will go to our prayer and care website page where you can fill out an online prayer request. You can schedule a meeting with a practitioner. In fact, all of February, all this month, you can have a practitioner session complimentary. It's on us. Whether you are facing challenges or you simply want to celebrate all of the good that is your life, I invite you this month, take advantage of that. Meet with a practitioner, fill out a prayer request. Next Sunday, Valentine's Day, we got a special service. Dr. Michelle is bringing it, a life committed to love. And I know she's got something special planned, so you don't want to miss it. And next Wednesday, we'll be back here. Dr. Patty is starting a 2-part series, and I believe it's called Living a Life Without Complaint. So that certainly sounds relevant. Hope to see you there. Peace and blessings.
I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm all here for God. There's no more struggle, no more strife. With my faith, I see the light. I am free in the Spirit.
you.